but keep on having internet connections because we suck, or I suck. But greetings, friends of the apocalypse, and welcome to lucky episode number 13 of Podcast at Ground Zero.
Did you say pod crash? You said pod crash, didn't you?
I don't know.
Hey, Chris Gore doesn't have time to make a podcast.
That's right. Podcast at Ground Zero, the Z word. We're going to talk about everybody's favorite new apocalypse, zombies. What I'm going to do for the meantime is I'm going to let Scott start talking here a little bit because I need to do a little back-end work here because I didn't get some stuff done. So,
yes.
Yeah, because we know how much Scott loves talking, so...
I will now fill the air with words.
No, but if Scott, you could just start us off with maybe a little bit of the zombie apocalypse. Where did it all come from? Where did this all start? Let's maybe talk a little bit about the origins, about how zombies originally started back with with voodoo tradition, and kind of go forward from there. And I'll jump in here in just a second.
I would like to go ahead and throw some news out. It's not exactly, it's really kind of olds, but this previous Friday and Saturday was the Zompire Film Festival. Ta-da! The Undead Film Festival that specializes in zombie and vampire films. They do it in Portland every year. The same guys who run the H.P. Lovecraft Film Festival, and they had a ton of short films and had 3 big feature films as part of their collection. One was Dead Banging, which was apparently a all-girl Japanese heavy metal band hit a zombie with their car one night after a particularly unsuccessful gig, and after the zombie eats a couple of their boyfriends, they decide the thing to do apparently is to adopt the zombie and make him the front man for their heavy metal band, which they rechristen Nosebleed. And so they take the zombie to their concerts. It proceeds to bite people. They keep going to different live shows. It keeps biting more people. The zombie apocalypse begins to destroy Japan, and our heroines seem completely unconcerned that the trajectory of their band's career seems to be coinciding with the trajectory of the zombie apocalypse until finally, the entirety of Japan is overrun with zombies. And to use the phrase "fucked up Japanese film" regarding this movie is a little redundant. It was completely off the wall. The subtitles were like somebody had taken Google Translate or something, and translated it from Japanese into Greek, and then from Greek into maybe French, and then from French back into English. The translations were astounding and really helped, sort of sell how weird it was. My 2 favorites were probably We Should Do a Live, which apparently is how they describe having a live concert or a live gig. We Should Do a Live. Let's see. I'm Going to Succeed on a Band. That was a good one. I'm going to succeed on a band. And the best one, the newspaper headline that says, Government participates in a virus. So Dead Banging was particularly hilarious. The other 2 films were very low budget, almost called They Will Outlive Us All. That was set mostly in one single apartment building in a kind of dystopian New York City where, they only get power intermittently. New York City is now being run like Lagos, Nigeria. Water's only on a certain amount of time. Electricity's only on a certain amount of time, and it's kind of a zombie apocalypse with cockroaches. The most apocalyptic one, though, was one called The Sound of Nothing. And I'm reading here from the schedule. The Sound of Nothing was very post-apocalyptic in that it mostly centered on sort of what was left of civilization after the zombie apocalypse had come through, and was less about, surviving from hordes of zombies. It was more about putting up with the assholes who were left over after the apocalypse. But it was very, very micro budget. Acting wasn't great, but I managed to enjoy it. It was pretty good. If its only flaw being, if it took the director 3 hours to set up a shot in a street in a small town, in Missouri where they're filming it, and with zombies and boarded up buildings and trash in the street, and they spent all this time setting up a shot like that, they showed it to you too much. They're kind of in love with all the work they did to do a shot, and you'd look at a shot for 10 seconds when you needed to see it for 3. So that's the news on the Zompire Film Festival. There are a lot of short films that I won't bore you with the details on those. There are tons and tons of short films, which are really sort of the real pick of the litter for the festival. But that happened, guys. Keep in mind that it'll be happening again next year. So.
And what you said about the translation thing, Scott, reminded me once. I watched a Monty Python and a Holy Grail documentary, and they were talking about translation, or maybe it was about Monty Python, but they used Monty Python as an example about translation to other languages and how things are lost. They took like a scene from the Holy Grail, translated into like Japanese or Chinese, and then translated it back, and it was what the fuck. It was so like, what are they talking about? It was so like not any relation to what was originally said. It was so out there. It was hilarious. It reminded me of that.
Somebody, and then the other thing that kills me about it is it's supposed to be an all-girl heavy metal band, right? But apparently the Japanese idea of heavy metal is like Twisted Sister and Poison, somewhere between glam and hair bands. So.
That's a Japanese for you.
It's nothing like it is nothing like the American idea. It's not that was it the Scorpions with America, yeah. Speaking of guys who lost something in translation, it's dead banging is off the fucking wall. It's no Wild Zero. All right, if you're looking for fucked up Japanese zombie apocalypse films, but it's up there.
Okay, cool.
I've got to ask.
Thanks for letting
I've got to ask. Have either of you seen the Japanese zombie film Stacy?
Oh my God!
I take it you have seen Stacy.
Yeah, I took 2 attempts to get through it. The first time I was just so horrified I had to stop watching because it was so unrelentingly, horrifyingly misogynistic and filled with the hate of all things vagina-y. I mean, it was really tough to watch. Yes, the zombie plague turns 16-year-old Japanese schoolgirls into zombies, and because
but only 16-year-old Japanese schoolgirls.
Only. Thus leaving the world with only like fat, blousy, dumpy Japanese women, middle-aged women, and the prospect of having to have sex with them has destroyed Japanese society. There's actually scenes of guys committing suicide rather than fuck a 40-year-old fat chick.
Well,
don't go there. I'm married to a 40-year-old fat chick, asshole.
No, she's not 40, sir. But
oh,
I'm gonna get it for that. She's gonna beat my ass.
She's gonna beat your ass, dude. All right, get ready to meet Bruce Campbell's right hand, which was a product they advertised in Stacy's, which was a chainsaw product for dismembering your 16-year-old girls.
In case you started showing symptoms.
Yes, and what were the symptoms of turning into a Japanese zombie? A
pre-death happiness.
Yeah, that's right. If girls begin giggling uncontrollably at all things and acting really, really twee, then they're about to turn into a flesh-eating zombie, and you should chop them into 72 pieces. It was very
and they had
important.
those garbage men who specialized in collecting zombie remains.
Oh my God! What a horrifying movie.
In the movie's defense, if they're saying, that, when they start getting giggly and stupid, that you should chop them into pieces. I mean, I think you should do that. I think we should do that anyway. I don't think we need to have a zombie apocalypse to that.
We're getting mail on this one.
Oh, of course. But anyway, all right. Moving on from that, we'll come back to zombie films a little more later. But let's talk briefly. Sure, go ahead, William.
Oh, about
Or,
more zombie movies, or just want me
oh
to
no.
introduce myself, or?
Yes, let's do that. Let's introduce William.
Yes, yes today, folks. Besides, myself and Mr. Scott Glantz, we have our reoccurring co-host here, William T. Thrasher,
Hello.
joining us. If we hadn't already established that, Scott. William's a friend of the show, and I've also been on one of his multiple podcasts, the Infinity Live, which is a gaming based podcast.
Yep. So weekly, it's a video podcast. It's every Thursday at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We go out live, and it's just kind of just a general roundtable of just whatever topic that we plan to discuss. And I believe the topic this week is actually going to be diseases in game.
Because everybody wants to get drippy dick after they visit the local cat house, no matter what game system they're in. You
got to watch out for the mummy rot.
Oh no, Fantasy VD.
So that's Mr. Thrasher here. So he's joining us again to join the discussion. So zombies. Okay. Well, we know that zombies have been popular at least in a subgenre for quite a very long time, and then they kind of boomed out into not just the mainstream of geek / nerd gaming / culture, but it launched itself full on into pop culture and regular culture. The zombie phenomenon is huge now, and I think it really started to get like that after 2003, 2004, after Max Brooks's Zombie Survival Guide. That's my perception of it.
Just to be a history nerd, I got to throw out that the first zombie film is, of course, White Zombie from 1932.
With Bela Lugosi.
Classic. With Bela Lugosi. And one of the reasons that the term shows up, which I don't think I'm going to be able to pull this off, but the term zombie doesn't turn up until a particular author, and I guess I'm going to have to go on the interwebs and look his name up, brought the phrase to America from Haiti. He wrote a book called The Magic Island, which was supposed to be an expose on Haiti. And the term zombie first arrives in North America when he writes his book. It's either 1930 or very close, but White Zombie was absolutely inspired by his sort of lurid tabloid journalist description of the religion of voodoo on the island of Haiti.
And that's where it all started. When people think of zombies, they don't think of necessarily voodoo anymore, because it's totally changed. The modern zombie genre has completely changed. But it did start off as a voodoo ritual, a voodoo thing, and with White Zombie, with the Bela Lugosi movies, that's how people knew zombies.
King of the Zombies is another good one from that same era.
But actually, a zombie also appears in the Ghost Breakers with Bob Hope.
Yeah, but again, until George Romero, zombies don't bite.
They don't bite. And that's in 1968 when Night of the Living Dead came out. When that movie came out, that changed. That's where the zombie came into the modern era. That's when it changed, and he's the one who really started that. Now, me and Scott were discussing offline during the week. He was telling me, he's like, well, and he was right. He was telling me how it's like Night of the Living Dead definitely took a lot from Richard Matheson's I Am Legend, even though I Am Legend is about vampires, but the whole basic premise of a disease spreading and, last man on earth type of situation. We were having a discussion about that, and I did a little research on it, and Mr. Glancy is absolutely 100% right, because right out of George Romero's mouth in an interview, he goes, yup, I ripped off Richard Matheson completely, and I just changed things around.
Excellent.
Both times it's sort of a pseudo-scientific explanation for a supernatural thing. And what really gets me about the Matheson connection is that George Romero's zombies remind me of vampires from actual European folklore. Vampires in European folklore before Bram Stoker comes along and gives them fangs and makes them, dress like a head waiter. and be all styly and shit. Before then, vampires are just corpses that rip out your throat and drink your blood. And boy, that's, they're smelly, they're kind of rotted, they're gross, they're monsters, they're animals, and certainly those are George Romero's ghouls, I guess he calls them in the first movie.
Yeah.
They call them as ghouls.
Well, they don't call them zombies, and you'll see through most zombie films, zombie stuff, that they don't ever. It's kind of an unwritten thing. People never really call them zombies. They never call. They're undead. They're walkers. They're this. They're that. They're
fighters. Yeah.
Which is something that I find very, very frustrating with a lot of modern anything with zombies, is that they all seem to take place in a parallel universe where zombie movies don't exist. Because,
Thank you.
Frankly, if a bunch of dead things are walking down the street trying to eat people, we would all call them zombies, except for that one jackass who does want to get into a semantic argument about whether or not they're actually zombies, based on some arbitrary criteria.
Yeah, we'd be sadly, Jared, they'd be calling the Rage zombies from 28 Days Later zombies, and we will not have time to discuss whether they're actually the undead or not. We're just going to have to put them down.
Yeah, exactly. Well, because and then in Shaun of the Dead, Simon Pegg alludes to that when Ed goes, and I quoted this in the this week's episode post was, "Are there zombies out there? Don't say that. What? That, what? That, the Z word, don't say it. Why not? Because it's ridiculous, All right, well, are there any of them out there, though? So, they acknowledged how they don't, call them zombies. So it's a weird thing how, I could see maybe...
How did that trope get started? That actually really confused me, because...
I think I know why, and I see this a lot of places. There are certain people who are... certain creators who are kind of embarrassed by the legacy of a particular genre. That's why it's very popular to call them survival horror movies and not zombie movies, because somehow they think that shields them from the handful of cheesy movies that drag down the whole genre. But it doesn't. You just create a whole new subset of pretentious cheesy movies that aren't that good. I have no shame calling, I don't call The Walking Dead, which actually my girlfriend is downstairs right now getting caught up because new episodes just got posted to a legitimate streaming service before anyone asks. And I don't call it a survival horror show. I call it a zombie show because it's about people dealing with zombies.
Yeah, exactly.
And it certainly is. As far as our apocalypses go, it is certainly zombie apocalypsy. But let's back up and actually connect zombies to apocalypses.
Yeah. And like I said, they don't call them zombies, especially in the early days with Romero's films, The Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead. Before it became so mainstream, they didn't call them zombies, because it hadn't really, I think, it hadn't permeated the culture yet. So now everybody goes, oh, walking corpse, zombie. That's how we are now. And I think Williams is right, how some people are embarrassed by that. They don't want to drag it down. But it became some kind of weird unwritten rule that, okay, we don't call them zombies, because they're not zombies. But some people are breaking through that wall and starting to do that now.
Which reminds me of something. I have to bring up a film called Revenant. It's not really a zombie apocalypse film. It's a zombie outbreak film, but it's this great film where a guy, the main character, fights his way out of his grave after having been buried, having been killed in the Iraq War, and fights his way into a bathroom and has to cut the strings that are holding his lips together because he's been embalmed and everything, and finds his way to his buddy's house, and the guy's like, "Oh, you're back from the dead, you're a zombie," and he's like, "No, I'm not, I swear I can talk, see, I'm not a zombie." "Oh, okay," and that's fine. The sun comes up, the guy falls over, just clunk, won't move. Well, as soon as the sun's up, he falls over. He starts to rot, but they find out if he drinks blood, human blood, he won't rot. Anytime the sun comes up, he just falls over. They press crosses to him. They put him in the sunlight. He doesn't burst into flames. He's got the characteristics of a zombie and the characteristics of a vampire, but he's not fitting into the Hollywood definitions. He's much closer to the old European ideas of an angry corpse ghost, a revenant. And
I like the way you describe them, like testing different
Yes.
like remedies and wards on them. That's something that you don't often see is when they people try to figure out exactly what the lore or laws or science or whatnot governing the monster actually is. I think that's really cool.
Captain Kronos, Vampire Hunter, is an old Hammer film, and there is a part where they go, well, we don't know what kind of vampire it is, so they drive a stake through its heart. Nope, doesn't work. They try hanging it. They immerse it in water. They keep trying all these different things, and they go through all the folklore until they finally get on the right one. And it's just hilarious that they acknowledge that there's as many breeds of vampire as there are, bullshit explanations or bullshit stories. They're all true.
Now, so where did the zombie apocalypse start? Again, I think it started with 1968 with the Romero film. Now, it wasn't a predominant thing, and it wasn't in everybody's mind, but that was the first iteration of it, because it was things getting broken down, things starting to get out of control.
Certainly, though, Vincent Price's Last Man on Earth, which is earlier than that, which is based on the math, certainly looks a lot like a zombie apocalypse in retrospect. But
yes,
Romero flat out brings it as zombies.
Although I'll say that that's not really outright an apocalypse, because the only people who really die, at least that we see, are the people in the cabin, and there's some sense afterwards that the world has learned how to deal with the zombies to some extent.
You're right. It's not a guaranteed apocalypse. You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of the ending of The Mist, where maybe the world is getting its act together, but it doesn't matter because our heroes are fucked. The people you followed, their story did not end well.
Yeah, and I was just recently watching the 1990 remake of Night of the Living Dead over the weekend, which I'm probably going to get slammed for this, but I think I like that more than the original 1968 version. But again, it was done lovingly. Savini did it. Romero was involved. A lot of the original people were involved, so it wasn't taken very far, off the beaten track. And it did go a little bit farther than what happened in the house. What was starting to happen in the outside world a little bit. How they were organized, but things were still kind of shitty. And some of those things that were included in that were actually were originally going to be in the original film. Like when they showed them hanging from the trees. Mm-hmm. And they were shooting them. They were originally going to include that in the first film, but they were like, lynching, 1968. They did not think it was a good idea to add that into it. But that was originally supposed to be in the film.
Yeah, I did not know that. And I agree that Savini did a fine job with the second, with the remake. There's absolutely not a damn thing wrong with it. Patricia Tallman, mwah, that's always a good thing. Tony Todd did a great. Was it Tony Todd?
Yes.
Tony Todd did a fine job as filling in on that one. It's pretty good, and the changes that they made to keep the audience guessing, even better.
Now, that being said, now we see more of the apocalypse is really more probably with Dawn of the Dead when that came out in 78, because things have really I think it maybe takes place a little bit into it, like kind of like he really did kind of right where it took off from the 1968 film, and things are really breaking down, and it's going down. They're everywhere. Things are going to shit. People are starting to go off on their own.
That scene where the helicopter takes off and you start seeing the lights go off in the buildings floor by floor. Yeah. That is like, oh wow, just roll the curtain down on civilization.
Yeah.
That was one of the most chilling things to me. Was just seeing the lights going off in the buildings, like, oh.
Also, I like to. We're gonna get to the island. What island? Well, any island.
That's assuming that these aren't the kinds of zombies that can swim or walk along the bottom of the water.
Well, again, back then I don't think the genre had been fully fledged as of yet. This is still things were still starting to come together with all this, But there's a lot of good stuff in that movie. You really see the breakdown, but there was other things.
And certainly, I think he learned. I think he took some lessons from the Crazies.
Yeah, the Crazies.
Yeah, some of the lessons he took from making the Crazies earlier. I guess that's what 72, 73, something like that.
I want to say 73. I think 74 maybe.
It's before that whole, the government response, things are breaking down. It's not the plan is not working. That kind of stuff. I certainly took some lessons for that, I think, and applied them to the '78
Film.
film.
Absolutely. And now, of course, other people started doing things back then because you had like the Italian films, doing zombies after that.
But it's after dawn.
that,
The Italian zombie films are all after Dawn of the Dead.
oh, are they? Okay, they're after dawn.
I don't know of a single Italian zombie film, whether it's Fulci or any of those guys. I don't remember anything coming before Dawn of the Dead.
Okay. What about some of my earliest memories of zombies come from one. Children shouldn't play with dead things.
Oh, yeah.
When did that come out? Was that like 78, 79 maybe?
Well, fortunately, again, if only we had some sort of electronic device where we can look.
I know it's
I'll take a moment. I'll see if I can find
out. Came out in 1973.
Wow. What? Children shouldn't play with dead things was 73. Yep.
Well,
okay.
One source I'm finding says 73, another saying 72. So it's entirely possible that it was completed in 72, but might not have found distribution until 73.
All right, so
that'll explain it then because
we had biting.
I didn't see it. I saw it was. Go ahead.
No, we have some lag here. I was just going to say it's Biting Zombies.
Yeah.
It's a film that actually has.
Well, I saw it. Well, I saw it on, actually, I didn't see it. I tried not to see it. Like I said, it must have been 77, 78 when I saw it. It was on TV. I was at my cousin's house, and they were playing in every room trying to scare me. 'Cause I was like, 8 years old. That movie freaked me out, So that was my first exposure to zombies, was seeing that. And then also I remember it must have been about 77, 78 around Christmas time. I was watching a TV show, some local television, and they were talking about monsters, and they were talking about zombies. Zombies rise from the grave. There was and they had these crappy illustrations. So that was my first exposure to that. Because I didn't see like Dawn of the Dead until like 83, maybe 84. So I didn't see it. I wasn't exposed to it proper.
That's about when I saw it too.
Yeah. So more films have been done, and then by the time Day of the Dead came out in 1985, which I saw, I would have been 16 at the time. I saw that in the theaters. It was full on by then. I was obsessed with the subject matter. But things that started, more and more started to come out. But again, it still hadn't really, dominated. It was definitely a subgenre. It was totally a subgenre at that point. Still,
I think we can leave aside films like Return of the Living Dead, because technically those films, I guess, weren't zombie apocalypses.
Well, Return of the Living Dead does end with an apocalyptic event, but it's because, spoiler alert, skip ahead 1 minute, because the army drops an atomic bomb on the city of Louisville. To wipe out the zombies.
We have a plan for this. It sounds like they've been expecting the call. I think they have a plan. Yes, they do.
Well, I skipped over Return of the Living Dead because we're talking about more of the Romero-style traditional zombies. Now, Russo did that, 1984, who also worked on the original 1968 film, did that film, and again, it was a bit of he tipped his hat to Romero with that, but he changed what it is, totally changed the style of zombies. You can't stop them. They eat brains, create a completely different subgenre.
And it's a zombie movie that exists in a world where there are zombie movies.
Yet they talk about Return of the Living Dead, and I thought you said if we destroyed the head, it would die. Well, it worked in the movie.
You mean the movie lied?
But that was the best line ever. Is you mean the movie lied?
Lied?
Anyone who goes up against some sort of mythological, supernatural creature using knowledge that they got from a movie is gonna be monster poop. That's.
And that is also the first time I think we see where zombies eat brains was originated in that film. And again, I love that film to death. 1985, I saw it, the Midnight Movie, AMC, Midnight Movie Express. Love that movie. All the punk rock, all the music. I was totally, again, as Scott always says, I was a punk rocker back then. Loved that freaking movie to death. I watch it all. I love it. I can't talk enough about it. But
it really, I think it actually is my favorite zombie movie. I watch it several times a year. I love going back to it. I love learning about it. I was lucky enough at Scarefest 2012 last year. They did a screening of it in the historical Kentucky Theater. It is so awesome to see that movie in a theater. Hey, and the movie takes place in Kentucky, and seeing that with a Kentucky crowd is amazing.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
nice. Yeah. Oh, also here to learn something about that movie. Okay, you remember? Oh my God, what's
Clue Gallagher?
No, not Clue. Who played the boyfriend? That was the character's name. That was
Okay, I know you're talking about the guy.
the boyfriend with the red baseball jacket. What was the character's name? That was again. Only if we had this magical box that could tell us this information. But anyway, you know the boyfriend and the red jacket he had on in the back had like written in the back like you'd have the baseball team. It said "fuck you" on the back.
Oh yeah.
Now I think they were gonna film it, but they didn't, or they filmed part of this because they wanted a plan for TV airing back then when they made this film. So they made an alternative jacket for him, and they filmed the scenes. They filmed the scenes for this, and the back of his jacket said "television version."
Actually, that is confirmed. They talk about that on the audio commentary on the DVD.
Freddie.
They did film that.
Freddie,
The
thank
character's
you.
name was Freddie.
Freddie.
Yeah.
And the movie is actually filled with stuff like that. Like in the medical warehouse where everything begins. There's all these great medical props lying around, and one of the medical props is an eye testing chart where you have the progressively smaller letters. Well, the guy who owns the warehouse is this guy called Bert. They keep referring to. If you actually read the letters, they say Bert is a slave driver.
Yep. Bert is a slave driver, and it goes farther than that. Since
Yeah,
I
it
can't
goes-
remember
It goes on and on.
Yeah, there's all kinds of references. Now there's all kinds of talk about how the mortician was a Nazi.
Oh yeah, he's got a picture of Hitler. He's listening to like the horse.
Wagner.
He's listening to Wagner. He's got the German service pistol.
Yeah, he's got a P-38.
He's always talking about putting, like, he knows how to, well, he runs a crematorium, but he knows way too much about putting people into ovens.
Yeah.
There's so much subtext in that film. I think it's one of the reasons I love it.
Oh, and he talks in German, like when he says something about with the rain, he's like knock something. He says something in German.
Oh yes, he does. Yes, and Don Calfa, who plays that part, does a fucking great job.
Oh, fantastic.
He's a
actually
B-grade actor from Forever, and he puts in an A+ performance.
Actually, I was lucky enough to meet him again at Scarefest 2012 last year. Autographed a photo from the set of that movie. He's a really awesome guy. I met Elaine Quigley too.
Ah, all right, Quigley.
She's real friendly.
All right, I guess we've lost Clue Gallagher. I mean, Clue's got to have been gone now. He was in films with frickin' Lee Marvin, like The Killers, and he was in 8 million fucking westerns back in the day. So, him and the guy who played Frank, I would be really shocked to hear that they're still around. That would have been who played Frank? James Karen.
He might be still around, but or some of them are. But Return of the Living Dead, that's when we first see an alternate version of the zombie, of the modern zombie.
Wow,
so,
you're right. James Karen is not gone.
Yeah.
James Karen is still above dirt, so good for James.
So, all right, so the zombies, and there was some limited stories written about the stuff. Things didn't really start to really pick up, I don't think, with the whole zombie apocalypse until... now, mind you, there's still films made. You had, the Dawn of the Dead, or Day of the Dead. They had the 1990 version. And then...
okay, and I just got to throw this in. Fucking Clue Gallagher's not dead either. Even IMDb does not list a death date, so I'm pleased to see that the vast majority of the cast is still sucking wind. That's great.
Oh, but as long as we're listing up movies in the run-up to the modern zombie apocalypse craze, let's not forget Redneck Zombies, which was the first Troma film shot entirely on video.
Holy crap! Oh,
Yeah.
geez, that's okay. That is obscure, but I watched a ton of Troma back in my college years.
There's some amazing gore effects in that movie.
Yeah. All right. Redneck Zombies it is.
William,
Yeah.
have you seen, since you're a huge fan of Return of the Living Dead like I am, have you seen the definitive documentary, More Brains, A Return to the Living Dead?
No, I haven't.
Oh my God, watch it. If you're a biggest fan of it, I own it. It's a really very good documentary, very thorough. Talks a lot. It's awesome. Track it down.
Nice.
More Brains, Return to the Living Dead. Great. It came out like 2 years ago, I think it came out. Very very good documentary on the film and all the films. Movies, there wasn't much in the way of books. And a lot of it was in role playing games because in the early 1999 was it 1999 that Eden Studios came out with All Flesh Must Be Eaten.
One of my all-time
I gotta
favorite
throw-
role-playing games.
I got to throw this out. 1989, this book called The Book of the Dead. I picked this up in college. There was a Book of the Dead 2. I have no idea what happened to my copy. But this thing has stories by Ramsey Campbell, Stephen King, there are a couple names. Les Daniels is another name I recognize. Joe Lansdale, Robert McCarran, a couple of their high-end horror writers. These were all stories set during the zombie apocalypse.
Yes,
it's absolutely flat out a zombie apocalypse. The same guys came out with this thing called Under the Fang, which was essentially again edited by Robert McCarran, which was a bunch of short stories all set in a world where the vampires have taken over. But Book of the Dead 1 and Book of the Dead 2 were really excellent. You still may be able to track those down on Amazon.
Yeah, I forgot.
But they were all zombie apocalypse stories, not just zombie outbreaks or zombie incidents, but are absolutely set in the world of a zombie apocalypse.
Yes, that's some of the earlier books that were out there related to that. So, and then again, like I said, 1999, All Flesh Must Be Eaten. Like William said, one of my favorite games. I love the Unit system. It's a simple game system. Now they were ahead of the curve with the whole zombie apocalypse thing, making a whole role-playing game dedicated to the zombie apocalypse. Nobody had done that yet. Now you can't swing a cat without hitting a zombie board game, zombie role-playing game, computer game, iPad game. I mean, it's everywhere. But they were like one of the first ones to have a dedicated game related to it. I think except for
it's interesting that there is kind of a hole though between the late '80s, as far as I can tell, and the early '90s, the late '80s and the late '90s for zombie material.
Yeah,
it seems to sink off. I mean, Land of the Dead, Document of the Dead, all those Romero Dead films don't turn up until the 2000s.
Early 2000s.
Although let's not forget though, 1992, Dead Alive.
That's true.
All right. Yep. And certainly
Cemetery Man.
Well, I don't know what the year on Cemetery Man is, but I think
that's 94.
Yeah, Cemetery Man in the 90s. That was zombies, undead. I love.
You're right. Cemetery Man is 1994. I stand corrected. Dead Alive.
Love
Dead Alive
Cemetery
is Dead Alive is 92. So, but it's interesting. That's an Italian film and a New Zealand film, which sort of tells me that while it may have slid off of the American audiences, the Japanese are doing zombie films during the 90s. I know that Wild Zero is one of them, but that was 99. But there's a lot of Japanese zombie films, and one of which I would want to point out. I'm gonna fail on the name completely, but I remember a zombie film where the zombie apocalypse starts right in the middle of some Yakuza hitmen taking this guy out to the woods to kill him in this area they've been dumping bodies for decades.
Is that Tokyo Zombie?
And then suddenly all the zombies rise from the grave and start chasing down the men who killed them. The men who'd taken them out in the woods and murdered them.
That's a different movie. Have you guys seen Tokyo Zombie?
No.
It's another Japanese zombie movie. What's really interesting is it's kind of in two parts, and the first part is the run-up to the zombie apocalypse, and it's about these two warehouse workers in Japan who are really big fans of wrestling and tournament martial arts, and there's this landfill. And just when someone just wants to dump something, they just dump it in the landfill, and it makes this weird chemical concoction. But the Yakuza's been dumping bodies there, and a warehouse accident kills one of their co-workers, and they're told by their manager, "We can't have a scandal at our company, dispose of the body." So they dump the body, and that's what tips the balance. And so all the chemicals in the landfill make all the dead rise from the landfill, and that triggers the zombie apocalypse. But then the film jumps forward 10 years into the future, and after the apocalypse and after a new civilization has arisen that can deal with the zombies. And then from that point on, the movie is all about one of those warehouse guys, how he fits into the new civilization that's come to dominate the Earth.
Nice.
Wow.
It's really fascinating. And it's a comedy.
Very cool. So as we've seen, we got, the rest of the world, in the 90s still talking about zombies, not so much in America. Started coming back, in the early 2000s. I said the All Flesh Must Be Eaten came out ahead of the curve. And then again, I think we fast forward to 2003 when Max Brooks' Zombie Survival Guide came out. Now, that came out, I think that changed the playing field, because that's when people really started to ramp things up. But also, Eden Studios put out 3 volumes of zombie stories. Three collections of zombie books for stories.
So the Book of All Flesh, the Book of More Flesh, and the Book of Final
Flesh. Yep.
Yeah.
By the time I got to the 3rd one, I couldn't finish it because the stories were just getting so... I couldn't read them anymore.
Formulaic?
Yeah, they just weren't good. But also, where I used to read a lot of, actually, because, I'm a hipster and I was into the zombie thing before, it was cool. So there's a website that's still going on to this day, Homepage of the Dead, dedicated to the Romero zombie films. They have a forum. And they had a fiction forum section. And that was back in 2000, 2001. A lot of people posted a lot of fiction up there, self-written fiction, like 13 years ago, before society vomited out so many stories and movies. A lot of the stuff I read on that forums were pretty good stories, and a lot of them were pretty bad, too. Now one of the things I always remember from one of those stories was... one of the lines somebody used in one of the stories was, what was a quote? It's like, "You never see the zombie that bites you." was something that I read in one of those stories, which I thought was pretty cool.
Where did you read that Romero material, where Romero wrote some opening chapters for kind of a novel? It was like the day Death died.
The Death of Death is what it was called. Yeah. 2 chapters came out, and he had a website where he actually posted you could pay for a PDF of it, and he only put out 2 chapters of it, and it was like a restarting of the whole zombie apocalypse thing. And I think eventually that I can't remember all the details now, but that I think Diary of the Dead eventually became that loosely, and those 2 original chapters are pretty good. I wish he would have written more. But this is all before he completely freaking lost it, because my opinion, he should not be allowed to make zombie films anymore. He's done.
Not after. Let's see. Document of the Dead was pretty bad.
Well, Land of the Dead was not good. Diary wasn't terrible. It wasn't terrible. He was trying to reboot things, but then the one that came out after that one, what was that one?
Oh yeah. Oh, the one set on the island, and it was awful.
My God.
You know what? I'm not remembering, but I'm probably because I'm clearly blocking it out, so I never have to.
It was.
Again, he's going to IMDb or Amazon.
Afternoon of the Living Dead or something like that. I can't remember.
Midsummer's Eve of the Dead, or
It was awful. It was so bad. But anyway, so. That after 2003, when Brooks came out with his book, I think that's what launched everything. Now we're at a point. Survival of the Dead. Thank you. Now we're at a point where there's a ton of There's a ton of role-playing games based on it. There's movies, so many movies. There's so much, like William said, cheese out there. There's so much of it out there that so much of it's terrible. There's stories and there's books and. There's too much to choose from, and it's really.
It doesn't help that Romero failed to copyright Night of the Living Dead.
Yeah, so
there's no copyright on the original film, so it's been remade a couple of terrible times.
And there's so many people still doing stuff, and there's so much out there, and some of it just is not good because people are just cranking out because it's popular. Not to say that I've ever done any zombie stuff myself, but
well, there's one other thing you guys are overlooking. In 2002, we got 28 Days Later, and that's kind of where this isn't a zombie movie, this is survival horror began.
Yes. Well, I'm gonna fight you on that, Will, because I agree with that because it is not a zombie film, and that's where.
But they stole all the zombie tropes. They stole the tropes of the zombie
so they
apocalypse.
stole the zombie tropes, and you're right. 2002 is where the modern zombie really changed because, again, my basic definition of a zombie is a person who has died, clinically dead, and returned to life. And 28 days later, they're not dead. So therefore, they're not zombies. They have a lot of zombie traits and aspects, but they're not dead, so they're not zombies.
So the zombies and redneck zombies aren't zombies because a toxic chemical has burned out the neurons in their head.
Yeah. If you shoot them in the chest, right in their cardiopulmonary system, and they fall over dead, that wasn't a zombie.
That's not a zombie. You know what? This is my definition. You got to be dead. And a lot of people agree with me. Now, so that came out, the 28 Days Later totally set a whole new genre out there. Now, as much as I don't...
Sorry, you first.
No, go ahead.
And then how much longer is it before Zack Snyder spits out the Dawn of the Dead remake, which steals from 28 Days Later certain tropes and plugs them back into the zombie apocalypse?
And he changes it. Now that's gonna circle me back to talk about something Max Brooks wrote. Again, as much as I don't like the guy because he did what I wanted to do before I did it, so I hate him. For it. And zombie survival guide is because again a lot of it is somebody's own personal perspective on things. So, and I won't get into how much I don't like World War Z. But he did write this short piece back in March of 2004 called Lifestyles of the Undead, where he does a little classification of zombies. It was called Lifestyles of the Undead. He talks about several types of zombies. There's the orthodox zombie. Okay, the orthodox zombie is the classic trilogy Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead type zombie. Okay?
Slow, take one in the head, falls over, eats people.
That's your orthodox. Then there's the reform zombies. Okay, reform zombies are, as all these brains, just not flesh, are the goal. While destroying their brains is no longer fatal, they have human speech. So the reform zombies are the Return of the Living Dead style zombies.
Dan O'Bannon's zombie.
Dan O'Bannon's zombie. Then you have conservative zombies. Okay, which are the ghouls inhabiting that is remade, many argue, the Dawn of the Dead remake are conservative zombies, okay, because it's got, the speed of the speed and action of the reformed zombies, but it's got all the downfalls of the orthodox zombie. So he does those, and they also took a lot from 28 Days Later, the whole modern thing. So those are your conservative zombies. So he made a little classifications to kind of define the different types of zombies we have now. People like Romero, they like kind of the orthodox. If you like the fast zombies, that's your new reform zombies. Or if you just like the brain zombies, that's more of the that's a reform. The conservative zombies are the more the newest.
I would point out that the type of zombie you get, whether you get a running zombie or a slow zombie, depends a lot on whatever hidden political message is hiding in your zombie film.
Well, that's true.
The slow zombies are there to show that people are shitty and won't work together, and the house can be on fire, and they'd rather have an argument about what color the drapes should have been while the house burns down around them.
Yep.
It's sort of the floodwaters are rising, and they can't work together to stack up the levee, which they could do if they could stop bickering for 5 seconds and do their fucking jobs. No relationship to any current events that we could possibly be talking about.
No, nothing at all. Nothing at all.
Yeah. Meanwhile, the fast zombie is the tsunami zombie, which is, no matter how well the nanny state is working and no matter how people cooperate and work together, that sprinting zombie is like a tsunami coming. No amount of organization is going to fix the giant tidal wave that's about to roll over you, and it's going to be here in minutes. You have minutes to prepare for the arrival, not hours or days or any kind of a slow burn. That zombie is sort of the fast zombies to me almost, how do I put it? Almost give human civilization an excuse for falling in the face of the zombie onslaught, because holy fuck, trying to get a headshot on something running and jigging and jugging like it's a marathon runner, that sucks.
Yeah.
That really sucks.
Well, that actually touches on something that it's often discussed on the Flophouse podcast, and that's that there's a real trend in horror movies now to just reduce any monster to a fast zombie. For instance, Hansel and Gretel witch hunters. The witches are just fast zombies. Abraham Lincoln vampire hunter. A lot of those vampires just fast zombies.
Huh.
Just make it ugly and eat people and run, and then we're done. That's your monster.
That's a good point. You know,
I had not noticed that yet.
Yeah. So you mentioned, I said the fast zombies, like the Dawn of the Dead remake. I went into that
dubious,
wanting to hate it because how dare they try to remake that classic film? The film only had similarity in name, and it was in a mall. That's it, you know. And I think if you took away the name, that movie stands strong on its own as a zombie film. I love that film. I think it's a fantastic film.
Yeah, I agree completely. And again, it sucked all of the fun out of the zombie apocalypse.
Oh, it wasn't fun. There's no surviving that. It's like, what the fuck, you know?
When I watched Dawn of the Dead for the first time in like '83 or '84, you know,
I could survive that.
Yeah, I'm gonna be fine. This is gonna be great. You know, everything's free. You just shoot everything in the head. It's gonna be great. No big deal. Survive the zombie apocalypse. Be the king of the new world. It's gonna be awesome. You know, I was convinced the zombie apocalypse would be awesome, but seeing those running zombies, yeah, it stopped being fun.
Yeah.
And it started being scary again, where one single zombie was a threat.
Yeah.
A
lot of people don't like these new fast-moving zombies because they say, oh, it's, you know, it breaks tradition. Only Romero zombies or blah blah blah. Now you have those arguments between, you know, the Romero camp and the fast camp. Now I could see, and I prefer the slow zombies myself, but the ones from the remake of Dawn of the Dead, I could justify those as well, because here's the thing. Just because you die and you come back to life, why do you have to move slow? What is causing them to move slow? Rigor mortis? Okay, once the rigor mortis breaks through, there's nothing slowing you down.
Yeah, it only sticks around for a few hours.
Yeah, so why couldn't they move fast? Now, people are like, oh, they run like a marathon runner, they're super fast. No, they are not running any faster than the human body allows them to go, except now remove pain receptors that normally stop us from running too fast. They don't have those inhibitors anymore. That's why they can run faster than you, because they don't feel any pain.
And they never run out of breath.
And they never run out of breaths. So that's why they're faster, you know, than you. And now, mind you, I think I could see zombies being like that initially. Now, eventually, I think they'll slow down because, number one, they are tearing themselves apart by moving so fast.
Yeah, once they've blown out the meniscus in their knee and it's just bone grinding against each other, they're just not going to be able to. The internal structures will break down, which would make I would love to see that in a zombie film where, you know, the outbreak, you know, first few days the zombies are zipping around at full speed and then they're limping, and then, you know, they're dragging a leg because they've all the tendons have come loose. Sure, the muscles might be flopping around, but what if the tendons have just snapped off from where they're connected in the leg? Now it's crawling, now it's limping, you know? That would be that would be a really cool thing to have in a zombie film.
Yes, because I could see both. I could have those worlds can exist together and coexist and be happy, I think, because I think one is a natural progression of the other. So
yeah.
Now, that all being said, you know, yes, the zombies are very popular. Walking Dead, the comic, you know, the movies, everything. It's very popular. Yes, The Walking Dead. Scott's showing up there, and yes, I was reading The Walking Dead in 2003 when it first came out because I'm a hipster.
Cool.
Oh yeah. Jared had this. I took me a couple of years before I broke down and picked up the first you know, collected, you know, graphic novel and thought, okay, I'm on board now. But I was not willing to buy into it at first
Yeah.
because I just presumed it would suck.
Yeah. Now, we've talked a lot about the films and games, and there's a lot of games, and there's a lot of cool. By the way, there's a lot of cool apps out there. One of my favorite iPhone apps that I have for zombies, I just want to put this out there before I have a subject gear change here in a second, is Zombie Gunship. It's available on Android and iPhone. Fantastic game. It's a simple little time waster. You are in a C-130 circling a couple of different fields where zombies are coming are trying to storm the bunker, and while humans are trying to get in there, and you got to fire your 40 millimeter, 105, and 25 mil guns to try to kill the zombies to keep them from overrunning the bunker while not killing the humans and let them get in there. It's in black and white. The sound effects. They did such a good job of simulating, those black and white films you see from, the Middle East of the C-130s flying over battlefields. They do such a fantastic job of simulating that, and you get to kill zombies. That's like my favorite iPhone time waster zombie app right there.
Okay.
You talk about time wasters. I've got here, and this also shows just how zombies have infiltrated everywhere. This is Ninja Town, an adorable tower defense game where you're building houses for ninjas so that they can fight off demons. And yet, one of the enemy types you face is the ninja zombie, which is just a slow-moving ninja. But if he kills one of your guys, he comes back as a ninja, so it potentially generates more enemies from your own population.
Nice. Yeah, it's everywhere. Plants vs. Zombie. I mean, it is everywhere in our culture. Now,
and the two polar opposite games I would point out are sort of Left 4 Dead, which is just one tactical situation after another. You're just fighting your way out of one fight after another in Left 4 Dead, a game that works really, really, really well as a multiplayer game. I'm really happy with that way that game works. And on the opposite end of that scale, I would throw out what's it called? What's the survival? State of Decay. Yeah, State of Decay, which is almost the exact opposite, which is instead of being nothing but tactical situations, it's nothing but strategic situations where you have to build a compound, fortify it, get the right people in it, get the right skill sets, get the right food, supplies, medicines. It's like it's like a mirror image of Left 4 Dead. Both very good games.
Oh yeah, me and Scott used to play Left 4 Dead all the time. When the first one came out, two came out, we used to play that all the time. Great game.
I've really enjoyed Left 4 Dead. I love being able to play the zombies in the multiplayer. Though if I can air, and it's a game series that I've loved. If I can air my one grievance, I really feel like Left 4 Dead was just the beta version of Left 4 Dead 2, and they tricked us into buying that game twice.
Yeah.
Yes. I agree completely. I think Hitler was right. There is a Hitler rant where someone animated, that one scene from the movie Downfall where Hitler is just like, screaming at his generals. Well, they did that for Left 4 Dead where he's like, good, my friends will be online tomorrow and we will play the new, DLC for Left 4 Dead, and the generals have to tell him, well, mein Führer, Valve has announced that there will be no more support for Left 4 Dead. It will only be for Left 4 Dead 2. And he has this rant where that's the exact quote. What was I doing for the last 8 months? Playing the goddamn beta? How can they do this to me? And I'm like,
yeah.
I think
somebody
has a point.
I think somebody also did that with Miley Cyrus too, with the Hitler rant. But anyway, Scott almost had a spit take, everybody.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, it's so funny that so often Hitler seems to have a point. Wow, it's like
he does. Yeah,
wouldn't normally say that, but the translation seems to come out. I think he's got a point about this.
Well, just remember, even a busted clock is right twice a day.
That is true.
Yeah. Valve shouldn't treat its customers like this. Damn you, Valve.
Now, what I wanted to talk about, because we don't really got a whole lot of time left, and we should have talked about this more, but that's okay. Is like I said, it's permeated the culture. It's everywhere. Why is everybody so fascinated with the zombies and the zombie apocalypse? Is it, survival? Is it is it just because it's the cool thing to do? Is it because people are obsessed with survival? What has made it so popular? Why is everybody into it? Why are there government practice scenarios for zombie survival now? And why is every prepper
they've literally run war games?
On
every
how to prepper.
Yeah.
So preppers, survival preppers are now like, oh, look, it's a zombie apocalypse. So yay, see, we're not crazy. We're trying to survive the zombie apocalypse, which isn't going to really happen. So we're not crazy. So why do you think it's become so popular? Why is it such a part of our culture now?
I honestly don't know why it's become popular, but I think it's like the same thing where like every 15 years vampires get really popular, and I just think that for whatever reason, zombies reached enough of a level of cultural saturation where they're now part of the popular monster cycle. Every 10 years, a whole bunch of haunting movies come out at this within the same 2-year period, and we're kind of going through one of those. And I suspect it's going to be the same way with found footage movies before too long. Just every few years, found footage movies are going to come back, and there's going to be absolutely no reason for it. It's just that for whatever reason, what one studio is putting something together, and all the other studios think that they must know what's going to be next. So they all start making those things.
Clearly, us over here in Studio A have no idea what the next big thing is, but the fact that Studio B is spending $1 on something must mean they have the inside track, or they wouldn't be spending the money. So we have to get into that parade fast.
Well, it creates like a really quick-acting, self-fulfilling prophecy that really quickly leads to market oversaturation. Then the whole thing collapses, and then that's when they heroically announce, "Well, this genre's dead and is never coming back." Even though it was never dead, they just made 5 shitty movies in a row in that genre. To admit they made shit. Movies.
Pirate movies, westerns, they all die and they're never coming back as a genre.
Well, but to point to Williams said about the cycle, the thing is, yes, vampires have had that cycle, haunting movies have had the cycle. Zombies have never had that. I don't think I've ever really had that cycle. At least in American popular culture.
I don't know. There was an upsurge in the '80s, a fairly good sized one, but not like it is now. It never broke through. It is clearly broken through now. It's clearly broken through in that they're using zombies in freaking car commercials now. Okay.
Yeah.
There's zombie apocalypses to sell cars. So I think it's utterly and completely broken through.
It's now. So then that leads to my next question then, because besides again, so. Like I said, it's like people's obsessed with survival because I've been a fan of survival again the apocalypse since the '80s with nuclear survival. It's because what I think my fascination with it became was when the Cold War ended, when the wall fell, when the Russians went away, when we didn't have an enemy, we didn't have a survival situation anymore. We weren't going to have World War III. I wasn't going to be I wasn't going to be John Thomas Rourke, the survivalist. I wasn't going to be, I wasn't going to.
But Jared, I would point out that a lot of the survival stuff, the survivalist literature, stories, genre, a lot of that in the 70s and 80s was wrapped up in the idea that it's not the Russians that are going to kind of come over here and take your shit, it's your neighbors. That your fellow Americans are going to be the problem after the apocalypse, after the breakdown. And certainly the zombie genre holds on to that idea.
Yes.
This sort of fetishizing that it's you against all your neighbors and they're all bad people. Except the cool thing about the guilt-free thing about the zombie apocalypse is that now all of your neighbors you hated anyways and kind of wanted to shoot in the head anyhow. Suddenly they're all flesh-eating, mindless, monstrous ghouls. They're not just people trying to steal your food so they can put a spoonful of dog food in their kid's mouth. They're not people with any kind of human motivations. Now you can totally dehumanize your neighbors and shoot them in the head and feel good about it. And frankly, there was a lot of that shit going on in some of the creepier, aspects of, survivalist literature, and survivalist material.
Dad, you shot the zombie Flanders. He was a zombie?
Exactly.
Thank you.
Marty, not you too. No, I'm not a zombie, but hey, when in Rome.
Thank you for that, William. So I think that, and Scott's right. Like I said, when the Cold War went away and survival, zombies kind of took that place for me because it's like, well, I don't have my nuclear apocalypse anymore, but the zombie thing would work. It's still an apocalypse. I still get to be the warrior of the wasteland. So it kind of just I replaced one disaster with another. Personally.
Also, the thing about being a zombie prepper is, and I've seen plenty of people do this.
Oh my God!
The idea that they're not taking it seriously. There's a level of humor involved with people who are, doing this, where the humor lets them off the hook for what they're doing. Like,
yeah. They're not the crazy person anymore.
Yeah, exactly. Ha ha ha! This is just a lark. I'm just having a good time. I'm not really planning for the end because I'm planning for an end that can't possibly happen. So there's sort of a way to laugh off and have a sense of humor about it, as opposed to those grim people who've been filling their basement with MREs and just cannot wait for the day that I'll be right and everyone else will be wrong, and then I'll laugh from inside my well-apportioned bunker. Ha ha ha! There's those douchebags who take it so fucking seriously. The people who are doing the zombie preparation, have managed to work some, I don't know, humanizing humor into it, I suppose. But at the same time, if you're prepared for a zombie apocalypse, you're going to be prepared for just about any disaster you care to name.
And I think a lot of organizations, like government organizations, they've been using that to try to get people just to prepare anyway for natural disasters, because they're like, well, people like zombies, people like this thing. Maybe if we throw that into it, it'll get them to do something like stock up water and food.
That's definitely behind the FEMA stuff, where they because it's funny, it's amusing, it sucks people in, and oh my God, now suddenly they actually have water for 3 days in their house.
And they're prepared when something happens. So there is some positive aspects. So it's not about all the crazy guy down the street,
Yeah.
But speaking of that, doing crazy things to justify, I'll throw this in there. I didn't bring it downstairs. I forgot to bring my zombie stick down. Yeah, my zombie stick is. If anybody's familiar with what's called a fish, F-I-S-H, a fish bat, it is about an 18-inch bat, either made out of wood or aluminum, that people use in deep-sea fishing when they pull fish on board and they knock the fish in the head.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so I took a fish bat, not a wood one. I took an aluminum one. And this is something because I was looking for something to do. I was looking for something to do, a hobby craft.
This is Jared Wallace's version of crafting.
This is my crafting.
Rather than knitting something or crocheting, Jared did this.
Jared did this. This is my project. I took the fish bat. I drilled a hole in the bottom because they're hollow. I filled it with BBs, and then resealed the end.
Oh.
So the thing weighs, I don't know, the thing's got to weigh 15 pounds or more. It is heavy. It is like swinging a wood, Roman practice sword. It is heavy. And let me tell you, you got to use the little lanyard on it to keep it from flying out of your hand. This thing, I guarantee you, will break. It'll cave your head open without any issue. I think if I hit you in the arm, it'll break your arm. This actually sits next to my bed. So if anybody breaks into the house, watch out. I'm not even getting the guns. I'm just gonna hit you with this because you're not gonna get up after this.
And I too have my own personal zombie weapon that was given to me as a gift by a friend of mine who was a metal worker, who built essentially took a railroad spike and hammered it out until it was extra long and pointy, and essentially made like a World War I trench spike. That's my phone ringing. Made a World War I trench spike, and it just looks like it would go through somebody's fontanelle, like stabbing into a pumpkin. It's really amusing.
Now, what I wanted to do with these two things was, one of these years I wanted to get out to the Zompire, and I wanted me and Scott to go on stage, and I want to get a hog's head, and I want to demonstrate the lethality of these items on a hog's head.
If we can get one of the eyes to shoot out of its socket into the audience, if there's a Gallagher splash zone, we win. All right.
Yeah. So
I'm going to point out that the Clinton Street Theater would probably hate that, but not as much as the cast of Rocky Horror, because when they showed the zombie films, we cleaned everything up there and left, showing at midnight after the Zompire Film Festival, they were showing the Rocky Horror Picture Show, and they had a full cast that was going to come in up on the stage. And the idea of Riff Raff or Columbia stepping in some wet spot left by your fucking hogshead, slipping and breaking the leg, that is revenge. That is revenge for being in the theater in 1984 trying to watch Peter and Roger kill zombies, and next door, through the wall of the theater, I got to put up with these fucking guys in fishnets singing "I'm a sweet transvestite from transsexual Transylvania," and just, transvestizing all over my goddamn zombie apocalypse. That's the revenge I want. I want them to slip and fall in the hog brains we leave on the stage.
So you mentioned having like Gallagher smashing zombie heads. And this is an actual thing, copyright me. But there was actually back in college, a friend of mine and I, we had actually worked out an outline for a movie where the zombie apocalypse happens in Vegas, and it's all about a group of prop comics. And they're the survivors the movie follows. So there's like a Gallagher type guy with a giant hammer. There's this carrot top type guy. But they were all. There was one who was like a comedic stage magician. But they were all just really hacky, prop-based comedians, and they were the ones who you were seeing survive. And they were trying to use their stagecraft to deal with zombies and crazy survivors.
That's fantastic, by the way.
That's awesome. Thank you. That is awesome.
All right, so last question, and we're going to call it, guys, because we're running along as usual, is the zombie genre, okay, is it oversaturated and has it jumped the shark at this point? William?
I'm not going to say it's jumped the shark, because jumping the shark requires a bit more narrow focus. I don't think an entire genre can jump the shark. I think only individual works within a genre can jump the shark. However, I do think it is oversaturated. There's more zombie stuff out there than I care to follow. There's so much of it out there that it's getting harder and harder to distinguish between the really good stuff and the absolute crap before you get into it. And like we mentioned earlier, where every monster now is so often just getting reduced into a fast zombie, it's sort of become sort of a lazy shorthand. Well, we don't know what else they're going to fight in this movie or in this game. Well, what the hell? We'll just make it a zombie.
Yeah. I'll agree with William that a genre cannot jump the shark.
Why not?
It can only because jumping the shark is about an individual story. Stories jump the shark. They are set in genres, sure, but a story jumps the shark where they fucked up the story in some way. They've made changes to the setup of the story that have altered the structure of that storyline to the point where it's never going to be as good as it was. Again, I just don't, we can all think the individual series like the X-Files or Star Trek or, again, Happy Days, the original one, where it has jumped the shark. And you can make arguments of whether, say, The Walking Dead has jumped the shark, or, Buffy, or whatever long-time series shows, because they, Supernatural's another good one that I would argue has jumped the shark. In fact, they had an episode called Jump the Shark, which oddly enough was not the point where they jumped the shark. But the point is that a genre can't, but a genre can certainly oversaturate. And certainly Pride and Prejudice with zombies shows me that there was a time when there was so little material out there, Jared, we picked it all up.
Oh, yeah.
In the 80s, we picked up everyone.
Everything.
We watched every shitty Fulci zombie film because we didn't know when the next one was going to happen. But now there's more. Again, there's more stuff than I can digest.
Or care to digest. Like William said, there's so much out there you can't tell. Is this going to be awful or is this going to be decent? You don't know anymore.
Yeah, and so I have to say that it is definitely oversaturated to the point where even fucking gourmands like you and me who love this stuff and thought we could never get enough of it are getting enough of it.
Oh yeah, I've had enough. I'm almost ashamed at this point to have my zombie tattoo at this point.
When'd you get that? Last week? Yeah, you're a Johnny come lately. I've been into
Actually,
zombie. I've been into zombies since 2009, back when it was still fresh. Fuck you,
actually,
kid.
actually, I got this after Zombies, the board game, came out, because actually the art is from some of the actual card art from that game. So
There's another one. Jesus, we totally forgot about zombies. But
Zombies.
anyway,
Anyway,
I think that it can. I don't think you can jump the shark, but you can certainly oversaturate. And we're there. We're there.
Exactly. So
I mean, I didn't see World War Z. All right, I've heard nothing good from anybody I respect about World War Z. It is not worth my sitting in that theater on my butt.
it's worth it when it comes out in video to see the first 20 minutes of it, because as we all know at this point, my favorite part of every apocalypse is the breakdown. I want to see it all come down. Okay,
Yeah.
and they didn't show enough of that. They showed a lot of going down stuff and like little snippets at the end. I'm like, why the fuck didn't we see that? But spoiler alert, my favorite. Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert. My favorite thing in that movie is in the very, 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 very beginning, when there's a garbage truck just plowing down the streets of whatever city that was, Boston or New York. Was it like Boston or something like that?
It might have been Philadelphia. It might have been Philadelphia. I don't remember.
This dump truck's just plowing through shit, knocking cars and bodies and zombies out of the way, just trying to get through shit. That was awesome. You know, that was my favorite part of the movie. And there was other good parts about the breakdown, because you saw some stuff how people acted and changed, and there was some good, again, the beginning until he got airlifted out of there and got to the whole organized UN and all that crap, But before that, up to then, I think the lead up to it had a lot of potential.
Yeah. But
so, I haven't seen it. I can't say.
Yeah. So that's my take on it. So anyway, all right. So we talked a lot about zombies because there's so much to talk about, and we could talk 10 more shows about zombies. But I think we covered a lot of ground on the games, the books, what's out there. It's become pretty fascinating. So it's good. Again, good subject matter. I was avoiding it for a while because it's so popular.
And we didn't even talk about all the zombie comedies like Zombieland, which turned out not to suck, strangely, and
Shaun of the Dead.
Shaun of the Dead. We didn't even get into that as well, but we'll just have to leave it for another time.
Well, to leave that for another time. But so we're going to wrap it up here. William, any final words? Final thoughts?
Final thoughts. Check out my recycled weapons articles on d-infinity.net. It's all post-apocalyptic weapons made from recycled parts, from the practical to the messy and crazy. And then other than that, play a zombie game, do a zombie role-playing game, which I'm really big on. But have fun with it. Make your zombies different. One of my favorite zombie. This was an all flesh must be eaten scenario I ran for the purposes of that game, because you could make your own zombies. Zombies were human corpses possessed by the spirits of savage animals, of like man-eating animals that still had a taste for human flesh. So they were in human bodies, but they would still behave like animals. So like if it was a panther zombie, it would try to climb trees like a panther and drop down on you. If it was like a wolf zombie, it would like run at you as fast as it could. Sometimes
in packs. And it would be in packs.
Yeah, in packs, and that was really fun, because they got into a position where they really had to observe the zombies to figure out what tactics they might have to use and try to figure out what was possessing them. Although what was great was the twist when they found zombies acting mostly human, and then it slowly dawned on them, oh holy shit, those are corpses possessed by human cannibal ghosts. And it was great.
Awesome, thank you, Will.
You're welcome.
Scott?
I guess I don't really have much else to add to this at this stage in the game, except again to say that I really think the popularity, the popularity of the zombie apocalypse is right. It's that people still love the whole survival thing. They love the individual fighting against all the odds, and instead of having to the Wild West of the American myth, but instead of Indians. Whose land we stole and who we herded into, stinking, reservations and things. Instead of having those as the opposition, our opposition is now zombies, who again are guilt-free opposition. You never have to feel, you're not at least supposed to ever have to feel sorry for killing a zombie. Although sometimes people even still do. Perhaps the most guilt-free would possibly be Nazi zombies. where, and under no circumstances do you have to feel bad about killing a Nazi zombie.
Oh no. Well, why would you ever? There's a lot of those too. A lot of
Yeah. Dead Snow was the Norwegian film that came out recently, and Shockwaves was the very first one that I can think of as far as Nazi zombies.
Oh yeah, Shockwaves with Peter Cushing was in that.
Yep.
I remember seeing that film in the '80s. Again, submerged zombies walking out of the water.
Oh yeah, and I got to tell you that film, I'll give them credit. It's a really low budget movie. It's got pacing problems, but the sequences where the zombies walk out of the surf, that got me. As a kid, I remember being really creeped out, and it still looks pretty good. In fact, there's a little teaser at the beginning of the movie which describes, in the final days of World War II, certain SS experiments took place. And that little blurb at the beginning, which, about, these SS soldiers brought to the front and released, and would attack their own troops and sometimes attack the Russians. And, that little blurb at the beginning of the film, and you can find that, I think, on YouTube somewhere, was so chilling and really made such an impression on me. It was where my inspiration came from for all the Nazi undead that I used in Delta Green back in '97 for the Nazi experiments with the undead. That's what that sequence at the beginning of Shockwaves really inspired all that.
Nice. All right, my final word. Again, I don't got much to add today. Like I said, I could go on about how much I love the genre, this and that, but I'll just leave us on the words of one of the newer zombie games out there called Outbreak Undead. Which they've really keyed their game around being more of a survival simulator type game, but using the zombie genre. Like I think their tagline is, I'll leave off with, your zombie survival plan will fail. So I'll leave everybody off.
That's a brilliant piece of marketing.
Brilliant piece of marketing. Your zombie survival. I got postcards to that in the closet there. So, all right. So we're all zombied out for the moment, folks. Again, thank you everybody for joining us. Thank you for staying with us, because again, we love to talk. This is Jared the Apocalypse for Apocalypse Nerd Wallace, William T. Thrasher, and Adam Scott Glancy signing off. Thank you, and we'll see you in the Wastelands. Good night.